Several new developments in south suburban Dolton today. First, the state comptroller has suspended some payments to the village because it has failed to follow the law by providing financial reports.
You could feel the anger tonight at a Board of Trustees meeting in Thornton Township. The board and citizens looking for accountability to their finances, while the township supervisor.
Here's a story that might just leave you shaking your head. Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, Illinois, is making headlines once again, and it's not for her public service. You'd think that someone pulling in a six-figure salary, reportedly around $300,000 annually, would be well off enough to handle something as basic as rent, right? Well, that's where things take a wild turn. Because according to recent reports, Henyard is facing an eviction notice for failing to pay her rent, and she's behind by months. How could that even be possible for someone in her position? We mean, with her kind of money, this shouldn't even be an issue, but it turns out there's a lot more to this story, and it's getting messy.
Coming in, unfortunately, we knew it was going to be a little messy, but it's just something we felt important that had to be done, that should be done. But like I said, you have just some accountability.
Let's start with the basics. According to reports, Henyard is 3 months behind on rent, and we're not talking about some mansion-level payments here. The rent is allegedly only around $1,100 per month. Yes, you heard that right. Someone who earns what most people can only dream of in a year can't manage to keep up with such a modest rent. People are understandably scratching their heads about this one. What's even more intriguing is that Henyard's name isn't the only one on the lease. Kamal Woods, her associate, is also tied to the property. So what's going on here? Is this some kind of sublease situation, or is there more happening behind the scenes?
Is there a motion to terminate Keith Freeman?
Now, if that wasn't enough to stir the pot, the speculation only gets deeper. The eviction notice was officially filed on September 18th, and Henyard and Woods were given 5 days to vacate the property. The amount owed, around $3,350 in back rent. Her lawyer quickly jumped in, claiming the whole thing was under false pretenses. But that raises even more questions. Doesn't it? False pretenses. Is the claim that Henyard never signed this lease, or that she actually paid the rent and it's all some big misunderstanding? You can see how this only adds fuel to the fire. So where's the mix-up?
Deep debt, and that is the finding of an investigation of village finances and the spending habits of beleaguered Mayor Tiffany Henyard.
For some, this story is just another chapter in a long list of controversies surrounding Henyard. This isn't the first time her name has popped up in the news for the wrong reasons. In fact, some are pointing to this eviction as just the latest in a series of questionable financial behaviors. Let's not forget, Henyard has already been accused of using taxpayer money for personal luxuries, think lavish trips to places like Las Vegas, renting out luxury vehicles, and even hosting extravagant street parties. And we're talking tens of thousands, if not more, spent on these expenses. Just last month, she threw a street party in her town, further solidifying her reputation for being loose with public funds.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
So could this eviction be tied to a broader issue with how Henyard handles money? It sure seems like it. You don't just forget to pay rent for 3 months. Not when you're someone who's used to managing pones, right? And if that's the case, what else is going on behind the scenes? Is this a sign that Henyard is financially spiraling out of control? Or is there a more calculated reason for falling behind on something as basic as rent? Some are even speculating that this could be a deliberate move on her part as part of a bigger scheme. Could Henyard be trying to play the victim here, positioning herself to say, hey, if I were really stealing all this money like people say, then why can't I afford my rent? It's a stretch, but when you're talking about someone with a track record like hers, anything seems possible.
Mr. Lacey is absolutely not guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating. And if you cooperate, you have to admit your guilt first.
Speaking of records, Henyard's legal history is another can of worms entirely. Public court records show that she's no stranger to legal troubles. There are dozens of lawsuits either pending against her or recently resolved, and they're not all related to her public office. Some of these lawsuits date back to 2012, with cases involving bank loans and personal debts. These lawsuits paint a picture of someone who's been grappling with financial and legal issues for a long time. The most recent of these lawsuits, of course, involves her current eviction.
One way that the government always does it is to go and investigate people around her, and that's what they're doing here.
But what makes this even juicier is that there's ocean speculation that Henyard doesn't even live at the property from which she's being evicted. Some insiders believe that this particular house is what they call a trap house. And no, we're not talking about the music term here. There are rumors swirling that the house might be involved in some kind of illegal activity, with Henyard and Woods refusing to allow the property owner to conduct inspections. In the lease, there's likely a clause stating that the owner has the right to inspect the premises periodically. But Henyard and Woods haven't allowed it. Now, why wouldn't they? Is there something to hide? It's the kind of thing that just makes people more suspicious.
Mayor Henyard fired her chief of police late last year without any approval from the village board. So now Robert Collins has filed a lawsuit against the village.
And it's not just a matter of paying rent. Henyard's financial management or mismanagement is causing ripples far beyond her personal life. There are claims that public grants, including funds allocated for youth projects, are being mishandled under her watch. In fact, a Freedom of Information Act request reportedly uncovered some very sketchy accounting practices within a grant project overseen by none other than Kamal Woods. Payments were made to individuals and entities, some of which seem downright questionable. For instance, Anthony Butler reportedly received over $66,000 for reasons that remain unclear. And that's just one example. It's these kinds of irregularities that are raising eyebrows and leading many to believe that Henyard's financial troubles run much deeper than just a few misrate payments.
The legal appointment, that's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel to figure out their next steps.
Now let's circle back to Henyard's reaction to all of this. Through her lawyer, she has claimed that this is all just a smear campaign orchestrated by her enemies. She's under attack, or so she says, by what she calls a corrupt board of trustees who are out to undermine her. She's even gone so far as to label their actions as attempts to subvert the will of the people. But when you're under investigation for financial mismanagement and facing accusations left and right, it's hard to see how you can still claim to be the victim. Public sentiment is definitely not in her favor, and that's putting it mildly. Residents in Dolton are increasingly vocal about their frustrations with Henyard. Some of them have taken to calling her America's worst mayor, and honestly, with everything that's coming to light, it's easy to see why.
Were you?
It's not paid by them.
Did you fly first class to Las Vegas?
Any other questions?
And it's not just the rent or the grant issues that have people talking. Henyard is also facing a federal investigation over her financial expenditures, and that's a whole other layer of scandal. The FBI is reportedly looking into her use of taxpayer money for personal gain, including spending on her security detail, which cost the town hundreds of thousands of dollars in police overtime. Some of this security money was allegedly used while Henyard was traveling out of town, even on personal business, which only raises more questions about her priorities and how she's using public resources. When you're already in the spotlight for questionable spending, flying first class on the taxpayer's dime isn't exactly a good look.
I am about to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments, there will be anything, it'll just be me addressing you guys to tell you what's going on.
It's no wonder that people in Dolton are calling for her resignation. But, as is typical with these kinds of scandals, Henyard isn't going down without a fight. She's vowed to stay the course, claiming that she's being unfairly targeted because she's a woman in power. According to Henyard, it's all part of a boys' club that doesn't want to see a woman succeed. Whether or not that's true is anyone's guess, but the facts remain: she's under investigation, she's facing eviction, and her financial dealings are murky at best.
This administration is shameful. Y'all are a disgrace.
We're watching the fall of this administration.
What makes this even more complicated is the way the public is reacting to all of this. If you scroll through the comment sections on social media or YouTube videos covering the story, you'll see a lot of frustration and disbelief. One commenter wrote, "She don't pay bills, period, unless taxpayers pay." And you can't really argue with that, given all the reports of her using public funds for personal expenses. Another commenter speculated, maybe she's doing this to make it look like she hasn't been stealing all this money. I can just hear her now while y'all out here accusing me of stealing money. Why don't I have enough to pay my rent? I know it's a stretch, but this is just how ratchet I believe she is. That's a pretty bold take, but it shows just how far public trust in Henyard has fallen. People are willing to believe almost anything about her at this point, and that's never a good sign for a politician.
Mayor Henyard fired her chief of police late last year without any approval from the village board. So now Robert Collins has filed a lawsuit.
So what happens next? That's the big question. With her eviction court date set for October 22nd, all eyes are on Henyard to see how this will play out. Will she manage to pull herself out of this mess, or will this be the final nail in the coffin for her political career? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, this story isn't going away anytime soon. Every new development only adds another layer to the already complex web of allegations and controversy surrounding her. And it doesn't stop at eviction or public funds. There are ongoing whispers about her involvement in even more serious matters. The allegations of corruption keep peeling up, and with the FBI involved, it's hard to imagine that this won't lead to something bigger. Some people are already predicting that more lawsuits and investigations are on the horizon, especially if more details come out about the mismanagement of public grants. If those funds were indeed misused, Henyard could be looking at legal consequences far beyond just being evicted from a property.
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1993.
But the question remains, how did we get here? How did someone who was elected to lead her town end up embroiled in so many scandals? Is it simply a case of poor judgment, or is there something more sinister going on? At the end of the day, it's hard to say. But one thing's for certain, the residents of Dolton deserve answers. They deserve to know where their money is going and why their mayor can't seem to keep her finances in order. And that leads us to a question that's on everyone's mind. Will Tiffany Henyard be able to bounce back from this? Or is this the beginning of the end for her political career? So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this developing story.